gay or you're straight, and one comes with an entirely different lifestyle.
Yay or nay?
That is a healthy amount of hair.
How long have you fancied men? Why didn't you tell me?
Because it didn't matter. I was in love with you.
It's a sex comedy about a woman in her 30s who's identified as a lesbian her whole life, and she comes out as bisexual, and she starts dating men for the first time. I've always been deeply uncomfortable with the term bisexual, even though it's very much what I am, and there's no other word for it. And I do identify as bisexual, and I called myself out as bisexual when I made my first film. And then hearing it be said about myself over and over again felt like nails on a chalkboard. And this was sort of investigating why that was the case. And I do think it's been weirdly cathartic. I think saying something over and over and over again about yourself and kind of delving into what the discomfort was strangely cathartic. And what I learned through the process of making the show was that all my distaste was self-enforced, that I was the person who was the most judgmental of what it meant to be neither straight nor gay. And also the discomfort of having to out yourself as consistently as I have for the past few years has been weirdly cathartic. And I think it being the title of the show itself, like that discomfort, saying to someone like, what's the name of your show? The Bisexual, and saying it over and over again. And at first it felt synonymous with saying like, it's called The Dirty Slut, and it's all about some dirty slut, and I'm a dirty slut. Oh God, please don't edit this to say like, I'm a dirty slut on camera. My poor mother has been through too much. But yeah, saying it over and over again about myself and about the show has numbed it for me. The sex in the show is about furthering the narrative that no one's the same at the beginning of the scene as they are at the end of the scene, which is true of any scene I direct. And it seems strange to me that people miss the opportunity to use sex as part of their storytelling. I read a script recently that was literally cut from like, they kiss and fall to the bed afterwards. And it was like, well, nothing... It's so strange to me that people just use sex as an opportunity to show that like penetration occurred, because that's never the case. Even with the most banal, like 40 years into a marriage sex, like your complacency is being told in that moment. And there's some kind of exchange of power or disdain or apathy or love. It's a communication between people. Why wouldn't you put that on screen the way you'd put any other kind of communication? And that was our intention in making each of these sex scenes. And they were highly collaborative. My producers, my writing partner, we were all a part of the storytelling of, okay, what is happening in this scene? And a lot of the comedy in the pitch of this was, watch a woman in her 30s have to deal with a penis for the first time. That was funny to me. And that was the jumping off point, the premise of the show. So episode 1, sex is like clumsy and awkward. But then as it continues, it takes on different shades. And it ended up becoming very much a sexual coming of age story as we started to write it. That the kernel of it was just, what would this look like? Someone saying this secret that they were holding back from, that they were actually interested in sleeping with men as well as women. Then where would that lead them to? Once they open the Pandora's box of being honest about their sexuality and their own desire, what else would they want to try? What else would they be too scared? What would be the insecurities about their bodies or their pleasure that they would have to confront after that? And that's what each scene became. And I think the show shows a lot of different kinds of sex. And actually the sex in episode 4, there's a sex scene that's like pretty seamless and hot and not clumsy or awkward at all. So I always like bristle a little when people are like, it's pretty funny and clumsy and awkward. And it's like, well, not always. Like sometimes sex is like that. And then sometimes it's like, whoa, it's happening. And you couldn't even, a second ago, you wouldn't have anticipated. And other times it's really slow and tentative. And I think that was the joy of making this show, is finally being able to be super honest about the different dialogues that happen and we don't get to see because they're so taboo, because they involve our bodies.
Okay.
I'm sorry, does that make you uncomfortable when I talk about masturbation?
No, not at all.
No, and now you can like picture in your head and it's distracting?
Just a bit.
And now you know how I feel when I'm trying to jerk off and your girlfriend's putting on a show.
There's 6 low budget episodes. I do think that in England, if someone has a voice, if someone's proven themselves, correct me if I'm wrong, guys, in Edinburgh, if someone has something to say, it's a different, there's a smaller audience to please. And there's smaller budgets and there's smaller seasons. So it's easier to take a risk on something you haven't seen before. And that was definitely the reception I got when I went and pitched in the UK, where I felt like, oh, the notes I got were go further, like make it a Channel 4 show, earn the right to be at your 10 o'clock spot, which was exciting. All the best things in my life are because of you.